The philosopher Socrates allegedly said, "I'm a citizen, not of Athens or Greece, but of the world." Today, I want to encourage all of you to expand your network of friends from other cultures, which will undoubtedly broaden your perspective or your worldview. I will begin by sharing with you a brief timeline of my past so that you are able to see how the friendships you make can dramatically impact your life, opening up new windows of opportunity and possibly take you all over the world as it did for me. When I was in high school, I became friends with some of the international exchange students, namely from Brazil and Japan. I remember being so fascinated by their cultures, and I learned a lot from hanging out with them. They just saw things differently than my American friends. They had different perspectives that were shaped, of course, by their unique cultures. One of the Brazilians on my high school soccer team, whom I had become close friends with, even invited me to visit him and his family in Salvador, Brazil, in the summer. This was 1999, before Skype, before Facebook, before Snapchat. Communication just wasn't as easy as it is today. And as far as I knew, leaving the country was a crazy or radical thing to do. And as you can imagine, it took a lot of work convincing my parents to let me go. Luckily, my mom grew up in Brazil, so I played my cards carefully, and eventually my parents allowed me to go. And it was an amazing experience. I had left the US bubble, stepped outside of my comfort zone, and life immediately became more interesting. This created in me an insatiable curiosity about the world. In college, I continued to make friends with students from other countries, specifically Togo, Ghana, Uganda, Libya, Japan, Korea, and Singapore. My network of friends was expanding, and many of my beliefs and preconceived notions about the world were often challenged as I encountered new worldviews and ways of being. All of this fueled an incessant desire to go abroad again and see more of the world. You can learn so much from interacting with people from other cultures. And international friendships also open up amazing international opportunities. For example, one of my Korean friends from college talked me into moving to South Korea to teach English after completing my undergraduate degree. So I packed my bags and moved to South Korea, Seoul, South Korea, where I lived for a year and a half. While I was there, I had many discussions with Koreans about politics, and I learned more and more about the Korean conflict, which has technically never ended. This new interest in global conflicts and global politics led me to visit the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which is considered to be the most heavily militarized border in the entire world. I began reading books on international relations and global politics and political philosophy that caused me to think deeply about our relationships with others. And I questioned why there was so much violence and conflict in the world. Living in Korea was a great experience that challenged many of my Western assumptions and eventually led to my interest in the emerging field of peace and conflict studies. As a result, I left South Korea for graduate school in Spain, where I earned a master's degree in peace, conflict, and development studies from a program affiliated with UNESCO, which is the educational or cultural wing of the United Nations. During my time in Spain, I had the unique privilege of studying with students from all over the world, many of them from conflict or post-conflict countries, such as Rwanda, Kenya, Afghanistan, Colombia, Palestine, Israel, Iran, and countries that I knew almost nothing about at the time, like Tajikistan. Upon completion of my master's degree in Spain, Muhammadiyah University Yogyakarta in Indonesia, a school one of my Indonesian friends was associated with, invited me to be a visiting lecturer and researcher. So I packed my bags once again and headed to the island of Java in Indonesia. Indonesia is an amazing place, consisting of more than 17,000 islands, with approximately 300 ethnicities, with a multiplicity of languages, cuisine, and culture, and so on. It is a very diverse country. While working there, I developed many new lasting friendships, and now I am well connected with friends living on many different islands in Indonesia. One of my friends from Flores, an island in Indonesia, introduced me to one of her friends, who is now my fiancée. And I'm expecting her to join me here sometime in the near future. So, as you can see, everything is connected. The international friendships that I made in high school created an excitement about meeting people from different cultures. I went on to make many international friends in college, which led me to Korea, where I became interested in political philosophy and peace and conflict studies. And this led me to Spain, where I studied and made friends with people from all over the world. One friendship while studying in Spain led to the opportunity to work in Indonesia. And because of this, I met my fiancée. Everything is connected. The friendships that you make will open your eyes to new perspectives, your mind to new ideas, and take you places that you never anticipated that you would go, and could even lead you to love. The experiences of living abroad have impacted who I am. The cultures that I have participated in have enriched my identity and my understanding of my place on this planet. We live in an increasingly interconnected world, and these connections become stronger every day. Art, literature, trade, music, and technology is now globalized. You may wake up and, say, watch a soccer match between Manchester United and Liverpool, and then go on to Skype with your relatives or friends living in Korea, China, Japan, Czech Republic, or somewhere in the US. Or you might follow your favorite celebrity in New York or Los Angeles on Twitter. Perhaps your favorite cuisine is Thai, Indian, or Mediterranean. You may have met someone from another country who loves hip-hop, or maybe you enjoy listening to samba or would like to take salsa dancing lessons. Take a look at some of the things that you own. Chances are that it's not made in the US. One day you may live in another country or find immigrants living in your own community. Together, we impact each other with our culturally unique perspectives. We now, more than ever before, live in a global community. We are truly all in this together. Neuroscientists tell us that we are soft-wired for empathy. We are born with an innate ability to empathize. In other words, we have the capacity to put ourselves in another person's shoes and feel and understand another person's perspective. Remarkably, the brain cells that fire when a person performs an action are the same brain cells that fire in the person observing that same action. And the more we use the empathy pathways in our brains, the stronger the connections we have with each other becomes. This ability for the observer to understand what another person is feeling without actually feeling it is the result of brain cells referred to as mirror neurons. Now, an important component of expanding your network and broadening your perspective or your worldview is empathy. Despite empathy being an intrinsic aspect of human nature, we see what some have labeled as an empathy deficit, a lack of empathy, all around the world, including within our own societies. War, racism, sexism, crime, nuclear proliferation, and various forms of structural violence, for example, is a reality. So how can this be explained? The answer is perhaps rooted in our tribal past. Before, empathy was kept within the confines of the tribe as a unifying force, and rarely was it extended to those outside of the tribe who were perceived as different, the so-called outgroup. Empathy was constantly repressed by placing one's in-group over others, and empathy was enhanced through the recognition of shared similarities between members of the tribe and so on. Whereas allegiance to one's tribe may have been necessary for survival in the past, we have moved beyond tribalism. Society has evolved, so to speak. We are a global community now, but many people and governments continue to resist this reality. The old tribal divisions of the past now threaten rather than preserve our survival as a species. We need to be all in and not let antiquated notions of tribalism divide us as human beings. In saying all of this, I'm in no way insinuating that we should all become the same. Quite the contrary. It is our diversity that makes us interesting and that allows us to learn from different perspectives. But we ought to celebrate our differences while understanding that we are all in this together and on the same team. We need to establish unity in diversity because difference is a strength, not a weakness. So I would like to say to the international students at La Lumiere to make the most of your experience living here. Forge new friendships. Get involved in student activities and expand your network. Broaden your perspective. As someone who has lived in 4 different countries and traveled to many others, I am familiar with some of the difficulties that you may encounter. And culture shock is the natural response to new ideas and new societal arrangements. And to the US students, I encourage you to continue to welcome the international students and continue to make them feel at home. Remember, you may live abroad one day in a so-called foreign land, so ask yourself how you would like to be treated if you were in that same situation. When I was in high school, I developed lasting friendships with some of the international exchange students. In fact, I talked with my Japanese friend from high school last week on Facebook. He just had a baby girl. And my Brazilian friend from high school, now a physician, recently invited me to attend his wedding in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Don't miss the opportunity to get to know the international students. You will be surprised how much you will learn. Now, we talk a lot about a person's IQ, or general intelligence, or intelligence quotient. But this interconnected world that we live in, we also need to develop what is called cultural intelligence, CQ, in order to effectively prepare ourselves for the challenges of the 21st century. And as the world becomes more interconnected, a wider range of opportunities will be available for those with high cultural intelligence, with high CQ. So finally, I want to end by simply saying this. Remember that we are all part of an increasingly interconnected global community. We are all in this together. Expand your network by making new friends. Broaden your perspective by entertaining new ideas. And above all, tap into that indispensable aspect of human nature called empathy. Thank you.